Welcome to the Wide World of Punting, episode 12, where we talk about everything and anything in the world of punting. My name is Jacob Wynn, and honestly, every week I try and make a 30-minute show, but sometimes I just get too much good content. This is one of those weeks. We've got Ask Tristan Anything. I've got Tristan from Top Sport on the show every week, but this week, you guys put the questions to him in the group. He answers them. That's 15 or 20 minutes. Then we've got Ben Scarf. So get to know the biggest name from the biggest punting group in Australia. He's answering questions from Punt Hub members. That's about 8 minutes. I've got a bonus segment called 60 Seconds is All I Need. That is with the racing. Magic Millions coming up this weekend. I have 4 Facebook tipping celebrities from the world of racing, obviously sharing their best bet for the day, each in 60 seconds or less. I've got Jamie Soward on to check the pulse of the NBA, talk about our NBA futures picks we gave out 3 weeks ago, how they're going, and share advice on what to look for throughout the season to find more opportunities to profit. And lastly, it's my Wide World Bet of the Week. So let's jump into Behind Bookie Lines with Tristan answering your question. Okay, this is an interesting question. Do bookies ever subscribe to any professional tipsters, I suppose, to get information, get ahead of the punters?
Certainly we don't. I can't comment for the whole industry, but like from our end, you know when a group of punters are coming at a tip set, we sort of call them, because there's just a avalanche of money on specific options at the same time. So for us, like we just treat the bets on face value when they come through. We manage them accordingly. Obviously, when we have limits on specific events, and if there's multiple people all coming at once, you have to sort of handle that accordingly. But no, we don't subscribe. We prefer to back our own sort of judgment and those sort of things.
The next question is from Brent, which ties into you're not hugely concerned about getting hit by a lot of people betting on something unless they're beating you consistently. So Brent is asking about tracking client profitability and client ROI. Is that something that you do? And could you give us an idea of what percentage of your clients would be in positive territory?
Yeah, so we can bring up a customer's lifetime result at any stage, and it helps you make those decisions to determine how you move prices after the bet. And I saw a comment on the thread there that we don't like people winning. It's not it's part of the game. Like, I've sort of been at pains to elaborate that over the entire season, that as long as people are betting in the right way, and we can shape our markets, we can use that information to hopefully absorb things and make our book directed the right way. So we like, probably a lot of our best customers are lifetime winning customers. We have a good relationship with them. It helps the overall picture if we can get a really sort of sharp sort of understanding of the market and build on that sort of liquidity. But in terms of the number of customers that win, it's a difficult one, and we'd definitely be on the higher end of the scale compared to a lot of our competitors. Like, I was reading a thread there on Twitter many months ago where people were saying it's like 0.0% or something of people that win. Ours is so much more than that. Like, I had a look at it back then, and this was a few months ago, but it was up in that sort of 30 to 40 percentile of customers that have lifetime winning accounts with us. So it's a lot more than people expect. There's obviously a key difference, though, between being a winning punter and being a professional punter. Like, a professional punter, that's their sole income. That's how they derive their income on a weekly, monthly basis. Whereas you can win on the punt and be sort of like more of a, still being a hobby and recreational, but it can add positive cash flow. So there is a significant difference there. Obviously, people who are only having a handful of bets and maybe utilising some of the early offers or whatever, like it can sort of sway that number as well. So I'd probably say the number of people that win off us lifetime is around that 30 to 40% mark. But as our client base increases, that does sort of revert back to the mean a little bit. So I'm not sure what the bigger operations are. I'm sure they're nowhere near that sort of number, but that's where we sit.
That actually blows my mind, 30 to 40%, because I hear it's like more like 2%. And I guess I'd caution people thinking 30 to 40% sounds a lot more achievable, but I'd say that is not easy to be in that group of people. But I guess the other part I'll say at what you said is, I think a lot of people want to know, do bookies track client ROI? because they think that that's how the bookies decide who they're going to ban, who they're going to limit. And what you're saying is you do track ROI, but it's not a tool for you to ban people. It's more so a tool for you to decide how meaningful their bets are in terms of shaping your odds.
Oh, 100%. And that's the thing. And we utilize that information. I think that's why we are a little bit different as well. We don't shut down accounts if they are profitable, like they continue to bet with us. And I feel the market, like I agree with you that, you can't think it's easy to go out there and be successful, but the market's never been as good for the punter as what it is now. Like, I know there are issues with limits and those sort of things, but there's so much variety in odds that are offered and those sort of things that if you are diligent, if you are strategic about it, it is a definite way to be able to be profitable in the game at the moment. So yeah, we just have a lot of shrewd customers that do their thing. They have their own little strategy, and they chip away at it. So, but yeah, we definitely do want an understanding of how a customer operates on a given sport, and then yeah, for us, it's more so about then determining how we utilize that information for when we take bets closer to the jump and those sort of things. Like there's a whole heap of contrasting ideas to go into it.
Here's another good question. The punters don't have a great understanding of where the taxation comes into it because, correct me if I'm wrong, like there's no such, even professional punters don't have to pay tax on their winnings, but they also can never claim punting losses against to offset their tax. And the reason for that is because the government builds all the taxes in on your end. So I'm just wondering, can you elaborate on that? Like, do you then, obviously you've got to pay tax. I presume it's either on company profit or you're building it into your pricing, but you can explain it a lot better than I can.
Yeah, so the old tax is a touchy subject for us. It's been something I've been fighting for a long way because it's been the biggest change in the industry over the last few years, and it's been the biggest detriment to the industry, and the reason why there are a lot of punters that do get shut down or severely limited because the taxes are extreme at the moment. We pay company tax, obviously, we pay GST, we pay point of consumption tax, which is basically if you bet from New South Wales, we pay a specific tax to the New South Wales government. We do that in every state, so you've got another tax there based on your revenue. Then you've got the biggest ones are the product fees or the race fields or the sporting fees, where you pay a percentage of turnover or revenue to the racing body or the sporting body. Now, I'm more than happy to do that. We're very happy to be supporting the industries. We understand we have to, but unfortunately, the fees have really ratcheted up over the last few years, and there's just a variety of different models. Some are fine, some are fair. There's a few that probably aren't, and that's when you get into trouble. Like if you have a look on our side on Saturday, we bet best of the best on the racing on all the metro meetings. Unfortunately, the WA model is just so bad. It's impossible to virtually win on WA racing as a bookmaker. So we don't offer best of the best on that race meeting. Our margin dictates how the race fees are calculated as well. We won't be as aggressive on a WA meeting compared to a Brisbane meeting or a South Australian meeting. So it's just trying to find that right spot where it's fair for the industry, it's fair for the bookmakers, but the most important thing with all of that is for it to be flow onto the punters in a positive way. As these fees keep getting ratcheted up, it is passed back onto the punter because the margins are higher, the limits are lower, and the offering is decreasing.
Probe a little deeper, right? So WA, and obviously that's Ascot among other tracks, right, for punters. And best of best, correct me if I'm wrong, is the best of the three totes and starting price? Is that what you classify?
Best of the best is our premium product. It's the best of top fluctuation and best tote SP. So we offer that on all the metropolitan meetings except for WA. We actually don't even release our WA odds until a lot later in the day because of the fee structure. Now, just to put it in layman's terms so that the listeners out there understand the difference, because you're probably saying, well, what's the difference? Is it 0.5% or whatever the case might be? So some of the states charge you purely on turnover. It can range from 1.5% to 3.5% to 4%. It depends on the quality of the race meeting, whether the bet's a tote-based product or a fixed odds product. Other jurisdictions charge you on your revenue. The issue with WA and also Victoria's in the same boat, but they're at least sort of acknowledging that they need to be understanding of the issue with it. The big problem with both of those jurisdictions at the moment is you pay on a daily basis, where if we lose, we pay a percentage of our turnover. If we win, we pay a percentage of our revenue. So what that does is, if you just say, for argument's sake, we win 100,000 on a given Saturday, and we have to pay 20% of that to the government. We pay 20,000, obviously. The next day, if we lose that 100,000 back, but we've turned over 2 million to do it, we have to pay 2 or 3% of our turnover on that 2 million. So you've broken square, but your fees can be, in that instance, would be 60,000 over the 2 days. And that's where the fair model is to look at that over a period of a month or a quarter or a year, where if we're making money, we're more than happy to be paying on the revenue. But it's, in my opinion, it's not fair to have a losing month, but still pay a portion of the revenue. Or what it does, it means your net fee actually goes from around about the 2% mark to 4.8% we're paying on WA at the moment, which is, it's very, very hard to win paying those sort of numbers.
Yeah, I didn't realize that, but that makes sense to me. If it's like not lucrative for you whatsoever to take bets on WA, then your approach is probably just, well, let's lower basically all the odds on the horses, because for one, the punters won't win as much if all their odds are a little bit lower relatively, and two, we won't absorb as much money, we won't get hit with as much turnover, but that of course are both negative things for punters. Next question is, what IT systems, and this comes from Jeff, what IT systems do you use to monitor other bookies' odds to help set your own? Surely not as manual as previously discussed. So I think Jeff was referring to you talking about, you've obviously got a team of traders, and I know we talked about information, and they've got their finger on the pulse. They're certainly monitoring any information that's coming through to help, alter odds or adjust markets. But with the number of markets that you have live at any given point in time, there must be an automated approach built in to adjust before it's manually done based on information.
Yeah, so we do have some sort of automated feature, particularly for your racing. We do a lot of it manually as well. Like we feel our traders are in the top of the industry, and we want to make sure that the traders are utilising their knowledge as opposed to relying on some automated feed. So in your racing, for example, when it's early in the day, we use a service, and it goes through a dynamic odds sort of system, which does automate it in a sense, but we put our opinion, we have our market price in there, so that keeps an element of our opinion in there, so it's not just dictated by what the market price is. But then in the last 10, 15, 20 minutes of a race or longer on the bigger races, we will do it all manual. With the sporting side of things, for your smaller events, you do run an automated type system on some of those markets, and then for the bigger events, we do have it all manual. So your rugby league, your AFL, your union, these things are all based on our traders manually moving things. But we have a model, obviously, for the child markets where when you move the key variable, like your head-to-head or your line, it does shift all the markets in line with it. So to answer the question, there is definitely automated things. You wouldn't be able to operate without it, but I would suggest, compared to a lot of our competitors, we run a lot of things more manually because we feel that there's some things you just can't rely on to run as efficiently automatically as if our traders use their skill to obviously make the right calls.
So there's a few questions that are on the same topic, so I'll try and tie them together. So in terms of automated odds, my understanding then what you're saying is that it's a model that is basically, I guess, analyzing what all your competition and what the whole market across the board has something priced at. And then if across the board a price is dropping, that's where the automation would come into your odds. It would automatically shift you down or up rather than you having to do it totally manually. Is that right?
A couple of different points there. So the automation is what looks at the overall marketplace, and then it uses our baseline opinion. So that's where it does shift, especially in the smaller leagues. If the market's moving, our system will catch up to that and we'll utilise that. What the model is it's basically for something like a rugby league match where you build something in which isn't looking at anyone else in the marketplace. It's looking solely at our data, and it calculates your halftime, full time, your line totals, doubles, all these things based off our key variables, or your tri-scorer markets. We enter a lot of those data points in, and then when a price changes, whether that be manual or automatically or whatever the case might be, is on one of those key variables, the model updates every one of your subset child markets on the back of that. So there is a distinction, and they're all absolutely used at different points. And then, as I said, we manually price a lot of the key main markets on the top tier sports that we really take a focus on.
That was the question from James Corey about mathematical models and what sort of factors. So yeah, to echo that, basically, I imagine, let's talk about rugby league. So I kind of think of it like your master data set is like the odds of who's going to win, the line, the total, and then your, I guess, derivative markets from that is like the halftime total, the halftime line. Basically, if you adjust the total, if the total's going down because it's raining, then every other market, like team totals and halftime total, would automatically move in your model. It wouldn't be a manual process of going and adjusting every derivative market. That's what you're talking about with like, and then you'd have a different model for NBA and and AFL and everything like that. Is that right?
Oh, exactly. Yeah. For the rugby league, probably a number of years ago, it was very much a manual process, which was we certainly weren't as efficiently pricing a lot of those child, and we've had to build the model as we've grown, and we've got a lot more markets on site. It would be impossible to manually update the 250 odd markets on a rugby league game. But yeah, you're right. You hit the nail on the head there. That the key variables are your head to head, your line, your totals. Then you have specific inputs, which are basically, player based sort of things, which then adjust the first try scorer markets and those sort of things. So what it allows you to do is, if you take a bet on on a specific player, you can adjust his variable, and then that will go through and adjust all the flow on markets related to it. Same as you say, if it's raining, you'll shorten up the total points. That'll have an impact on your team totals, your team splits, all these sort of things. So and on that, the question I see there as well, we do it all in house. We got a couple of guys that do that. They're much smarter than myself, so I can't really give too much insight in how they come up with all of the information. But yeah, it's one of those things. It's an important tool, and it's something we're continuing to expand on. We're wanting to build a lot more of these things out because we have it in place for the key sports, and we're trying to grow our offering on every sport to be really, really competitive on a whole range of sports over the next year. That's one of our key aspects of what we're wanting to enhance at our end.
And I'm sure that as an opportunity for punters, if you've got a theory about how games are going to play out, that would differ to how the model prices it. And I'm guessing, you said you can't give in like every detail of how their model works, but I'm guessing they'd look back on historical data. So you mentioned halftime, full-time before. So it's one thing to figure out how often you estimate the probability of a rugby league team winning is, but then how do you price the halftime, full-time, which in this case, I'm talking about them leading at halftime and at full time. I presume that could be done with historical data of just looking at what percentage of the time do winning teams also have a lead. Is that kind of like what fuels the model?
Yeah, exactly. You look at existing data, you put points in to build it. I don't know all the ins and outs of how it all works, but I know that's the premise behind it. Like where there can be edges in certain things is like if you got an AFL game, for example, and the historical data might say X, but if you're playing somewhere in Tasmania and it's really, really windy in the first quarter, then obviously that gives Team A, who's running with the wind, a significant advantage there, and it sort of throws a lot of those other historical elements to it out of whack. So we have to have a few little manual overrides that we need to look at. But if you can be on top of that as a punter, if you can understand that there's a few things that are going to be different, and that's something I'd sort of put to punters out there that are looking to explore these sort of things is try to have an understanding of where something is different to what the vast majority of the historical information is on a given game, a given league. And that's where you can sort of then look at that, because as we touched on a few weeks ago, we're looking at thousands and thousands of markets. If you can pinpoint down a couple of little things that you can maybe identify and try to find little niches, and that's where not just us, but all bookmakers, there can be little holes in these sort of things.
Yeah, or you might take a shortcut like, okay, the total match points is this, so we're going to set the halftime total at half that. But it may not be quite that simple. It may be that fatigue is a bigger element in the second half, and second halves are higher scoring. But that would be something that you might build in. But I mean, your AFL one, let's say that when there's a big favourite in the AFL, they most likely might win wire to wire, and historically might show that they lead at first quarter and lead at every quarter and win. But as you said, if in the first quarter they're playing into a gale force breeze, even if they are expected to win the game by 20 or 30 points because they're going to get their share, they're not running with it in the first quarter. Therefore, there'd be like potentially something that's not captured in the model would be value on the underdog because of that kind of external factor that would be hard for you to capture. You've given me your reminder. I once had a multi that was paying really large sum, and I had the Melbourne Demons to win a game, and I think it was in Tassie in gale force wind. They're down 42-0 in the first quarter into a gale force wind. They were 500 to 1 in live odds. I remember because I looked at it. by the fourth quarter, they'd leveled up the game because I think they were only down about a goal at halftime. Once they got the breeze in the second quarter, they came storming back. They leveled up the game with the breeze in their favor, and then they actually lost.
Oh.
They actually then conceded 2 of the 3 last goals, even though it was virtually impossible to lose when you were running with the breeze. But I was thinking, man, what I should have been doing was sitting on live betting like next goal, something like that, which I know people have advantages with. So sorry that just ends abruptly there, guys. But we actually have split that into 2. We got 40 minutes out of Tristan answering all your questions. That was the first half. Second half of that Q&A with Tristan, we're actually going to run in episode 13, so next week. Look forward to that. Now I've got a brief chat with Benny Scarf. He's risen to prominence sharing horse racing tips in his own unique style. You're going to get to see that and get to know him a little bit with a few curly questions from Punt Hub. Again, even if you're not into racing, we're looking a little bit more racing this week because there's a big racing meet at the Magic Millions, and obviously last week had Tom Waterhouse. But regardless of what event, whether it's sport, racing, I like to get to know the personality of the people, and I also like to hear a bit about people's process. And you get a bit of that from Ben, who's only a young guy, and also talk to him about how he deals with giving out tips that influence thousands of dollars in the marketplace and inevitably lead to criticism if it doesn't get up. And it's good to hear Ben's perspective on that. Here's my chat with him now. Right, well, Benny, thanks for joining us. I've noticed your meteoric rise with your videos and your horse racing tips. I guess my first question is, where do you want to take it from here? Is it all about the bets? Is it about the banter? Is it about both?
Well, at this stage it's pretty early. It's pretty early days. Like I only started really posting in October or something. I think my first tip was Everest Day or something. And after that it was like every 3 weeks. I started mainly because like the tips in Punt Hub are either bland or just shit. Like they read the same. They're like, oh, Warwick Farm, race 4, number 6, good first up record, should be winning. It's like, fuck, mate. Like, come on, mate, give me more than that. Like, it's just boring. I'm just reading the same bullshit, and they just always look. They're just shithouse tips. So I just figure because on my Instagram, I consider myself a bit of a comedian, self-proclaimed comedian. So I'm like telling stories and stuff over video. So I was just kind of transitioning that into Punt Hub. It's just unreal.
Can you talk about then your process, just briefly, like how do you go about picking your winners?
Well, I'd say the most underestimated factor in the market is probably leader bias. So that's probably the first thing I go to. So on a Saturday, essentially just try to find the most leader bias track. A lot of it, you have to stray away from the metros. Like unlike the exception is maybe like Moonee Valley. Dooman's pretty leader bias. But for example, Kilcoy in Queensland, arguably the most leader bias track in Australia. It's got like 120 meter straight or something. And I just think it's one of the factors that the market misses out on a lot. So that's one of the main things.
Can I just to follow up on that? Does that just mean it's about picking who's going to be out in front is going to have a big advantage at specific tracks on specific days?
Yeah, pretty much that. Yeah, exactly. If they've led before, So
it's about your speed map. Now, mate, you're dressed up smart. I guess you're off to work. Can you disclose to people where you work for now? You still have a full-time day job?
It's very confidential. It's very confidential. I can't tell you, mate. No. I'm an analyst for a property data collection firm in the city of Sydney. It's not as good as it sounds.
How do you sit down with balls that big, Matt? I can't tell if you're sitting down right now. These are the questions that the people from Punt Hub want to know.
I thought about that. I was like, fuck, how am I going to answer that? But, yeah.
Can you answer this one? What's been your biggest bet?
Yeah, I saw that. I'm actually not that big of a punter. Like a lot of the tips I put in, like I don't even have money on it myself. Like, yeah, Dash on Saturday won it at like $6. I didn't have a cent on it. But the biggest bet I put on was like last year. I'm like $20 to $50 punter, generally speaking. But last year I had a bet on. I was about 42 beers deep, and I had 100 on Avilius in the George Main Stakes. That was my biggest, and that fortunately won. So stoked. Yeah.
And how does it sit with you that when you share a video like this, that you actually could be influencing like thousands of dollars, if not tens of thousands, to be on one of these horses that you might have $20 on?
Yeah, it's a bit scary. Like I remember Edison a few weeks ago. I tipped it about $2.50. Within an hour, it was into $2. I'm going, this can't be a coincidence. Like I think I had $10 on it. I didn't even want to be on it. I just kind of felt I had to. Yeah, it's just scary. Like someone put a bet slip in for $2,500. It's like I literally had $10 on this. Like,
Are you aware that you're punching?
yeah, my missus put that one up. She loves it. She just wants to feature in a video. Oh, maybe one day. Maybe one day.
Shout out to Mrs. Scarf. What about, so then are you in profit overall with these fire tips that have you just caught lightning in a bottle recently, or have you always found you have been successful with your racing tips?
I haven't been punting for that long. I've been punting probably a couple of years. I track it every 3 months. So I get like betting statements from all the bookies sent to me every 3 months. And I'm profiting a little bit, not much, but a little bit. Any profits?
That's good. That's good advice in itself, to get the bookies to send you out your statement, just to keep yourself accountable.
Even if you're losing, like, it's just important to know, I reckon.
Yeah, because sometimes people almost don't want to know, and it can actually get worse than it really is. How do you spell punters?
Oh, I can't believe this is even correct. Punnas. Punters.
So you spell it the way you say it. Yeah, I thought that would be the case. Do you have a go-to KFC order?
Well, the normal regular zinger box with and then you fuck off the potato and gravy and your upsides and chips. I don't really respect anyone who orders anything else. Unless you can get a large zinger box, I respect that.
And then what? You go Pepsi, 7-Up, Mountain Dew, or
Mountain Dew's the go. Perfect
bender. Run us through it.
I'm not really into the benders. I don't know. I've never really gone on like a proper bender. Honestly, I've had big ones, but.
Maybe in the future, when COVID lifts, maybe like a Magic Millions boys trip, and all the Punhub boys meet you on track and shout you. Exactly. The snoz, I haven't seen a big deal. Have you got like a crooked nose? You're on camera right now. Is there a story?
I broke in year 11. Even before that, it was broken. Well, when it's that fucking long, it'd be weird if it wasn't a bit crooked. Like the chance of it being not crooked is pretty low when it's that long.
We're still talking about your nose, right? Yeah. And there's another question here. I can't read it out, but if you've read it in the comments, Mitch Farley's question, you can answer just, would you move forwards or backwards 2 inches? This is the most liked comment.
You'd have to go forward, wouldn't you? You have to go forward.
That's Benny Scarf, always going forward. And another quirk you've got from your videos, people are you always touching your head if you've got something like your sunnies or your hat. I think I've picked it up on this video. Have you got like mosquito infestation around your house or something? You're wiping them out of your face?
Mosquitoes everywhere. There's mosquitoes. Yeah. Everywhere else, I don't know. I think it's more of a nervous thing. I don't know. I'm always touching my sunnies and shit. Touching my hat. I don't know. It just feels natural. I don't know.
Everyone's got their quirks, mate. That's There's no reason to be nervous though with the run you're on, mate. And I wish you the success. And I guess like I've been in the punting groups for many years, so I've seen meteoric rises before. So just hope that not all the fame goes to your head. My one bit of advice: just stay nice to people, because people do wait for that. Have you thought about what happens if I lose one or I lose two in a row? Because it's kind of inevitable, and they are savages. You put it well to me yesterday. Like you said, the blokes in Punhub are less forgiving than a 2-iron. So
exactly.
Have you thought about how you would deal with like almost trolling that hasn't even happened yet?
Yeah, you just not reply. They just want to bait you. It's happened before. Like I remember I was none from 5. Everyone forgets that I was none from 5, and they just drilled me. And I'm like, well, I didn't steal your phone and put the bet on, mate. Like, leave me alone.
I didn't realize that either. So you actually had some good persistence to stick with it, because a lot of people think like, oh, I fancy myself, I'm the next Benny Scarf, and they say, oh, I'm going to chuck a tip up, and it loses, and you never hear from them again. So you stuck to it. So that's good advice for budding punters out there as well. It's like, believe in your methods, and one day you could be on the Wide World of Punting podcast in a suit, sharing tips to the world. So cheers to Benny. That was my chat with him. And if you enjoyed that, you're going to get a little bit more bonus spend, because he's also given me his best tip for Magic Millions. And it's a juicy one. And I've got 4 Facebook celebrities: Kevin Coxix, Benny Scarf, Jason Campbell, and BMoz, all sharing their tip, all under 60 seconds. The segment is called 60 Seconds is All I Need. So here are their best for Magic Millions.
And g'day to the boys down at Wide World of Punting. Thanks for having me on. Love the show. It's Benny Scarf here. I've been asked to give my tip on Magic Millions Day, and who could blame you? They don't call me the Gold Coast God for no reason. Now, I've gone with Gold Coast Race 8, number 10. Now, if you look at its last run, once it hit the lead, it just didn't know what to do. Like, it was going crazy. It was going crazier than my missus last week when she found out how much I punted. But since then, it's had a trial. It chucked the blinkers on. It just looked really comfortable. Ridden very conservatively. I can't wait to see it this Saturday. It's got the blinkers on for the first time in a race this Saturday. It's at $17. I've been speaking to a few of the connections. Nash did a bit of track work on it a few days ago. One of the best 2-year-olds he's ever ridden, apparently. Can't wait to see it at $17. I'd have it more around $6 or $7. Good luck, punters. All the best.
G'day, Tripodders. Big Kev here. And my best bet for the big Magic Millions meeting is in the 3-year-old guineas in the shape of number 12, Forbidden Love. This filly has had a string of wins and placings in black type races. And last start was first up from a spell as a short price favourite in the Gosford Guineas and won in style. Normally an on-pace runner, she came from the back half of the field and appears to have gone up to the next level. At $5.50, I think it's a pretty good bet in the 3-year-old guineas, and good luck if you follow. Cheers.
Hey there, Pod fam. It's Moz here, one half of 2 Mugs Punting, and I'm going to bring you the awesome insight to the 2-year-old classic down here at the Gold Coast this weekend. Now, look, nothing's hit the Gold Coast this big since Botha's head tried to bloody fit through the casino doors, and we all know how that ended up. But what I'm on this weekend here, Pod fam, is Alpine Edge. So the local hope, the Queenslander, we're getting $8 or $9 for this fella as of this video. But from barrier 9, he's going to get a lovely card into the race there with some inside speed on his gate. The top fancies in the market, yes, they're all class, hence the name, but it's going to really have to do it tough from that wide draw. This fella, though, has shown plenty of versatility in his first 2 runs. He's going to sit right off the speed, and I think he's just got a little bit of a weapon turn of foot to come over the top of him late. Good luck there, Pod fam. Let's go the edge. Woo!
G'day Tripod, Jason Campbell here. Jacob's asked me to come on and cover a few races for Magic Millions this Saturday. I know a few of you loose nuts will be down there, so I hope you guys have a blast. Drink plenty of piss and back these winners, eh? In the 2-year-old race, I'm currently with Swift Witness for the Gay Waterhouse and Adrian Bott team. I thought her win last Saturday was ridiculous, and if she can reproduce that effort, she should be very hard to beat. The one at a bit of odds that the bookies might have forgotten is readily available for me at this current stage. In the 3-year-old race, we see Isotope and Away Game having their second head-to-head matchup. The first one was just thrilling. We saw Isotope get buried back further in the field than what she can be this Saturday, and she came down the outside and absolutely blew Away Game off. I think she can do that once again here. Away Game will definitely improve being second up here, but just that win last time was just simply ridiculous. That's all for me. Hope you guys have a great weekend and good luck.
Good luck to those boys. Thanks for being part of the show. Thanks for sharing, hopefully, a bit of jam. And again, even if you're not into racing, I find it quite interesting just hearing people share their tips and what's most important to them in finding value and the way that they look at it and go about it. Now, speaking of finding value, I was on Jamie Soward's podcast, Sweet and Sour, to preview the NBA season, which started up just before Christmas. And we gave out a bunch of futures plays. It shared that in the group as well as a couple of my favourite futures. And then we reiterated a few of them on the Wide World of Punting episode 9 just before Christmas as well. Now it's been 3 weeks of the season. We thought we'd revisit it, see how they're going. And quite a few of our odds have shortened and they're looking good. And also what we've learned and what opportunities there are throughout the season. Now, one thing I will warn you, very early into this chat, and it's only about a 10-minute chat, Jamie's video froze. So if you're wondering why I keep overlaying graphics over his face and why his expression doesn't change, unfortunately we didn't realize that was like a permanent part of the video until after it was recorded, and that's just the way it's going to be for this chat. It won't affect you if you're listening to this as a podcast, but if you're watching, that's why I don't always put the graphics over Jamie, because I rate my own face. I wish I could cover mine up, but that's just what happened, just to explain it. Let's go into my chat with Jamie Soward. So on the Sweet and Sour pod, we did the preview, and I actually gave out LaMelo Ball as my Rookie of the Year, where he was the favourite, but he's now into $1.50. He's been killing it of late. Can you see anybody but him winning that one?
No, I think that, when we did that pre sort of season start podcast and we were talking about that, we were trying to look for value. And, I picked Isaac Okoro from Cleveland Cavaliers, and they're actually not going too bad at 5 and 6. But again, we understand that there's a storyline around LaMelo. He's been playing fantastic. I think he's probably exceeded expectations of the guys that maybe had a little bit of doubt on how he was going to transition into the NBA. And the other thing we probably didn't take into account, Jacob, was on the fact that he's on not a good team. Like, I know they're in the top 8 at the moment, but he's not on a great team, so he's going to get a lot of minutes. He's getting a lot of exposure. $1.50 seems overs at the moment. I think he shits this in now.
Considering he's not even starting, he's just coming off the bench. But yeah, he's had some really good stats. I will give credit to Tristan on your pod, the Sweet and Sour podcast. He shouted out Tyrese Halliburton, who is actually second favorite at the moment, $6 odds on Sacramento. But as you say, it's probably LaMelo's to lose unless he gets injured. What about MVP? We both agreed Luka. Again, he was the favorite, but $5 we thought was value. And he still is the favorite. I don't think he's gone gangbusters, but is he still kind of the leader in the clubhouse as far as you're concerned?
Yeah, again, I don't know if we see sort of too much from those guys. I mean, the season's 11 games old, and probably this year, LeBron James, after the first MVP votes came out, he was leading the way through his play. His team's going to win a lot of games. But Luka, probably a little bit underdone. I think they're going to see the voters for me in the MVP for the NBA have had two things: the storyline, which we've both spoken about, and the other thing is it's going to come down to where your team finishes. So you may see a late surge. I think Luka will still be in the conversation all year, but with COVID, with players and games getting rescheduled and all that kind of stuff, we're in a bit of a holding pattern in terms of the MVP at the moment. But I have no doubt that LeBron, who I tipped at $10 as well, I think that he'll be in the conversation with Luka towards the end of the year, based off the fact that they're both going to be, vote getting at the moment. And the third thing, Jacob, is you would know this: it's NFL season at the moment. There's no like big LeBron chat, basketball chat. This is all NFL and wild card and all that kind of stuff. So I would be waiting probably about 3 weeks after the NFL's finished. Then we'll start to see some front runners in the MVP.
I think you're right. Once it starts leading SportsCenter, and especially this year where the season started late, it's going to run all the way through to there'll be regular season still being played April, May. And you do find MVP, it's usually who makes that late surge. The Mavs are 5-4. Porzingis hasn't played a game yet. He'll be back soon. Luka's actually averaging less points, rebounds, assists than last year, but I think he still has the narrative, plenty of time in his favor. Actually, the other day, he won a nationally televised game in OT. Was amazing against Denver. There is one other guy who was double-digit odds who I wish I'd endorsed a bit more, and that's Steph Curry, just because of his situation. He's fresh because he missed a lot of games last year. He's got no one else kind of taking a lot of the ball on his team. Obviously, unfortunately, Klay Thompson isn't there. He had 62 points the other day. Looks in amazing touch. Do you think Steph has a chance to win the MVP?
Yeah, and again, it's going to come down to if he can drag this team to the playoffs, his odds shorten right up. I was going to ask you, when do you think, if people are investing, when do they pull the trigger on investing in an MVP? Because right now, a little bit up and down, as we said, for all the reasons. When would you be investing over the next month or so?
You know what? I'll be even more specific than that. Most bookies actually keep MVP in their futures, even open daily. They don't close it when the games are on. I would literally have my eye on a player like a Steph, and if he heats up and he's got 50 points heading into a fourth quarter in a game, you literally can jump on then, because we all know that it's like the storylines that factor in. And I remember a couple of years ago, James Harden had like a 55-point explosion, and we just jumped on him for MVP before they quickly adjusted. So I think you can literally pick spots on a given day when a player has that kind of signature game, because you need a few of them on your resume. Moving to most improved, I think you went with Zion, who has gone well, and I'm kicking myself for not recognizing Christian Wood being a good option there, just because the Rockets are really typically very savvy with their personnel additions, and this guy was liked by a lot of smart people last year. He's averaging 23-10 this year, up from 13-6, and he's got the story of being undrafted. Can anyone else win it other than Christian Wood, you think?
I still like Zion. I liked what I've seen from Zion. They're going to be a playoff team under Stan Van Gundy. I think he's actually put some ownership back into those players there. So I've texted Tristan a couple of times. I'm really happy with the $21 I got there. Christian Wood, again, we're 11 games into a 72-game season. Is this going to continue? If he gets injured or has a form slump, how does he bounce back from that? I know he got the big deal and he's getting a lot of coverage now, but you would know better than anyone. The coverage right now doesn't really mean anything. It's very comfortable with Zion, the $21. Christian Wood's having a fantastic opening to the season, but whether he can continue that, whether James Harden gets traded and they go down the Rockets, that's another thing to take into consideration as well.
That's a good point. And then on the other side of the coin, he could get even more production if Harden wasn't there taking the ball.
Yeah.
But you're right. Like, the thing is, because these are all voted awards, everyone's got short memory. So how we feel now might not be how the voters are going to feel, in 3 or 4 months' time. So your probably advice as well is don't rush in and bet all these futures just on kind of who's the hot property this week. You can still bide your time. Defensive player of the year, we both like Ben Simmons, and I checked the odds the other day. His odds have halved, so that's a good sign. I think he's in, single-digit odds where we got 16, 17 to 1 on him. It's kind of hard. It's a hard award to really judge, but Philadelphia are going quite well so far this year.
Yeah, they are. And I think Ben Simmons, I checked his stats daily when he was on a little bit of a heater to start the season in terms of his defensive play. I love the fact that he rebounds the ball, and that will take the spotlight off his shooting. If he continues to rebound the ball, average 2 steals a game, a block here or there, he's going to be a hard matchup, and he's going to take the best guys every night. So I love what you just said there, which is, if you're listening to these podcasts and it's not always about making money. Sure, we want to do it, but sometimes you can just get some really good advice if you are supporting a player. It's recency biased. We all have short memories. Is Ben Simmons going to be the defensive player at the end of the year? We hope so, but more often than not, like Rudy Gobert is up there every year, doesn't get any recognition throughout the year, has a good month going into the playoffs, and he's up for defensive player of the year. Same with Giannis. So I love that advice that we sometimes we forget that how recency bias plays into these voting systems ahead of the awards at the end of the year.
And you mentioned LeBron before for MVP. And of course, I think if I looked at the defensive player of the year, the favorite is Anthony Davis, LeBron's teammate. And like even a guy like LeBron can come out into the media and make statements like, oh, he's the anchor of our team. He deserves all the credit. And it does influence voting as well. So, and I don't think Anthony Davis has ever won Defensive Player of the Year. And sometimes voters also feel like they owe a player an award. So that would definitely be a guy to keep an eye on. Now, we both shouted out teams that we thought could have a good year. And we both agreed, I think, in the East, our team was the Atlanta Hawks. And we're only 10 games in, but it's already been a roller coaster. They shot out 4-1, and I was basically already spending the money on my over 48% win percentage because they only need to win half their games. Then they lost 4 in a row. They blew big leads to Cavs, Knicks. They lost as a big favorite to the Hornets. Currently 5-5. Gallinari, Bogdanovic, and Rondo are all out. How do you feel about the Hawks so far?
Yeah, I think that's a tough one now. I think that becomes they're always sort of going to be a 6, 7, 8 playoff team. But now looking at their roster with those guys out, Gallinari, slow start, Bogdanovic, slow start. And we don't know this COVID stuff is going to, how that's going to affect teams. The other worrying thing for you, Jacob, or those people that did invest is Toronto Raptors slow start, so they're going to get hot at some stage. The Washington Wizards, you would think, start to work it out just because of the athleticism of Russell Westbrook and Bradley Beal being on a tear. And the Brooklyn Nets, they are an absolute basket case with Kyrie at the moment. So there's 3 teams that potentially take out Orlando, Charlotte, and maybe the Atlanta Hawks, which puts them on the bubble for that 48% win.
And even Miami, who we know are going to win a lot of games this year, I think they're only 4-4. So even they're going to, win their share of games, and they share a division with the Hawks. So you're right, I am a little bit worried. But I think all those guys I mentioned, none of them are massive injuries. I think they should all be back, like, let's say by February at least. And hey, they're still above the win percentage that we need them to be. We just need them to win half their games, tread some water, as you say, be on the bubble of the playoffs. Now, I give you a lot of credit because your team you picked for a big year in the West was the Phoenix Suns, currently 3rd in the West, 7-4. If you like what you're seeing out in Phoenix.
Yeah, loving it. And I think the most important thing is when you look deeper into the box score is they're not relying on Chris Paul to come out and have to have those big games. He's come over there as a leader. It looks like Devin Booker, DeAndre Ayton have really responded to his leadership. And sometimes as a player, you want that older guy to come in and just tweak a few things. Just understand, okay, we might be on a back-to-back here, boys, but if we start fast, I think last week they were on a back-to-back outside after a tough game and they end up winning the game. Like, I don't know if the Phoenix Suns have had that toughness for a long time. Now they've got one of the toughest players to play point guard ever in the game and a Hall of Famer in Chris Paul. So I've loved what I've seen from the Phoenix Suns. They're really fun to watch. Elsewhere in the West, look, the Denver Nuggets have started slow. Jacob, New Orleans Pelicans and the Houston Rockets. So I think that the West is so strong, but again, it'll come down to COVID. I think back to Jason Tatum now. He's out for 14 days. Like, they lead the East at the moment, the Celtics, whether that takes rhythm, how it affects you afterwards, all that kind of stuff. It's going to be a really hard season again to win if they don't go into the bubble.
I'm going to ask you about the Celtics next because Kemba Walker hasn't played a game yet, but as you say, they're leading the East. Jaylen Brown has been phenomenal. I think Tristan Thompson has been a good, quiet addition in the front court. That's my last question for you. We actually did our finals predictions, and you touched on the Nets are a bit of a mess, although funnily enough, their odds are still very short. They're like equal favorites to win the East, $7 for the title. Your pick to win the East was the Bucks, but in your very biased opinion, would you be changing that to Boston?
I think, clearly I want Boston to win and I will invest in Boston. Once I see probably 20, 25 games, that's when I start to make whether it's a sizable one or just a little dabble there. But the Bucks, they're a great regular season team. And I just think that the storyline around Giannis this year, they have to get over the hump. That's why I went their pick. If I was to do every podcast and say it with my heart, of course it would be Boston Celtics, but that's boring for the people listening at home. So I think one team that surprised me and probably we didn't give enough recognition to in the East is the Philadelphia 76ers. Doc Rivers, and this is why I picked Ben Simmons as well, he's renowned for his defense and he's renowned for getting teams to be good defensively. And you think back to that 08 team with Garnett, Ray Allen, they sacrificed their attack for their defense. So that's why I think Embiid and Simmons this year can really flourish under Doc Rivers, and the 76ers would be good value as well.
And as you say, these things are changing daily, certainly weekly. So I'll get you on in another couple of weeks for another pulse check. But I appreciate your time to come in and share your assessment so far, the early stages of the NBA season. Can you let people know where else they can follow you and your content?
Yeah, Sour Official on Instagram. We're just getting ready to get season 2 of the Sweet and Sour podcast. The Short and Sour podcast with the NRL wrap-up will be happening very, very shortly once we start to get some information. But other than that, I'll be hanging around you and talking to you and following the NBA.
Now it's time for the Wide World Bet of the Week, and I don't want to be condescending about it. Like, I want these bets to win every week. I have my own money on it, and my good friends all back it as well because I can genuinely always tell them it's a great bet to get on. But in some ways, a losing streak is a good lesson that even good value bets, which I stand by every single week and can be great value, still can lose, still can suffer a losing streak, and still cannot return profit in a short sample. And even though I'm obviously giving picks across a range of events and I get a bit tricky with some of them, it's not at all as if I'm throwing darts. I really put in a lot of work. Whatever topic, whatever event I'm making my bet on, I put in a lot of work to really try and pull as much value out of the tip as I can. You look back, we're on a 5-week losing streak, but I look at like the test match highest individual score. We're a big favourite going into day 4 in that test. Favourite to win with our NFL Panthers to get over 19 points. It didn't happen. Even the week just gone by, needing the Steelers under 24. They had 0 points in the first 28 minutes of that match, but they fell behind so much that they just went guns blazing and the opposition plays a prevent defense and it just became an absolute points fest. We get backdoored even though we were a live favourite in the run. You can even argue the 5-teamer in the NFL and college once Alabama got up and Clemson had a touchdown lead. We're a favourite in the run for that before that one got blown up. So really in the last 5 weeks, the one tip I really regret is the Brisbane Heat, who got towed up in their season opener. And even the Heat have won 4 of their last 6 matches, and you never know what's going to happen in an opener. So, and then you go back beyond 5 weeks ago, we had back-to-back $3.50 wins. So look, in summary, losing streaks are part of punting, especially the smaller sample you go, the more luck and variance is going to play a part. And when you look at a small sample, a couple of 50-50s that either go your way or don't, you really feel them a lot more. And it's hard for me because I do one show a week and I have to stew on it for a whole week when I don't produce the goods. And this week, hopefully I can. We're jumping on Australia in the fourth and final test cricket match against India. So if you go back to the first test, Australia won emphatically, then lost the Boxing Day test fairly unexpectedly, and then the third test at the SCG just concluded this week, and that one was a draw. So they're at 1-1, all to play for in Brisbane, and Australia has been a fairly short favourite to start all three tests so far, and that's partly why I don't mind getting on them now after two disappointing results, where if you backed Australia to win, you lost your ticket. So you guys know, of course, I'm no cricket expert, but anyone who is can tell you India's squad is fairly depleted. They've got key injuries mounting up. And that makes me feel that another upset by India in terms of the bookmaker odds would be a mammoth task. I'm willing to bet that Australia gets up in this test. And look, that's not very bold. They're $1.45 to win. But for my Wide World Bet of the Week, they must win the match and also hold a first innings lead. Now, what's interesting is they didn't hold the lead in the first innings in the first match, but they did win. They did hold the lead of the first innings in the third test, but then couldn't close it out and win. So if they leaded the first innings and win the match, that would be the first time they do that out of these 4 games. If you were to win first innings or first innings lead and win the match, to reach about $1.40 to $1.45 range, you'd get just over $2. But no bookie will let you multi those two markets. Obviously, they're highly correlated, despite the fact it hasn't happened yet. And that's why $2.25 that we're getting with a $200 max limit, not a $100 limit, so you can get on, you can still bet $200 to win $250. That feels like an excellent bet to me. Certainly not a lock, as I've explained, nothing is. You get a massive Indian innings, you get a early Aussie collapse, you get substantial rain, and that could be our downfall, and that's why it's punting. But if you like the Aussies, you want to take this risk, this could be a very good value way to play them, in my opinion. And that'll do it for this week. Next week, we're going to have part 2 of Ask Tristan Anything. So we got like 40 minutes of quality chat with Tristan today. So we said, let's split it. Let's give you guys half this week and half next week with the rest of your good questions, including, is he going to start an ad campaign like Tom Waterhouse, and lots more. And then I've also got 2 NFL experts coming on next week. The NFL playoffs are really heating up. We had 6 games just gone by this week, 4 big ones this weekend. And then next week, we'll be looking forward to the 2 conference title games that decide who makes the Super Bowl. Don't forget, got Kansas City Chiefs at $8.50 for those who followed my preseason tip in the group. So we'll look forward to that next week. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Like, comment, subscribe. If you enjoy the show, tell your mates. I really appreciate it. But always gamble responsibly. Lego.